Hello and welcome. I'm Master Lama Rasaji, and this is our Friday Shangri-La edition of Rasaji Speak. So happy you can be with us today. And let's see, let's talk about the title. Wisdom through suffering versus humor, basically meaning wisdom either through suffering or wisdom through humor, right? It's amazing things. Different cultures around the world process things differently, even the collective consciousness of that particular world. And for the masses of that country, this is very true for third world countries. Part of the reason that a third world country is a third world country is for this very reason. I picked up on that. I'm one of the few American born that actually spent over 10 years in what's considered a third world country. India, Tibet, the Philippines, Mexico, third world, right? So some might say Mexico's second world, but that really depends on what province in Mexico you're living in, as you could ask some of our people. The key of it is that what we hold on to and collectively vibrate has a lot to do with how we process information, especially emotionally and psychological. I'll give you an example of that. Some of us grew up in households where one or more of the parent, particularly, probably was a worrier. And we're wondering how much did that influence us coming up? Are you a worrier? Did you process that, right? Now, topple that with certain religions. I mean, Catholicism was big on this, right? And that is they're taught to feel guilty. They're taught to worry about everything. What do you think that does to your vibration and to your frequency, right? So when you look at the country you were raised up in, then what is the collective consciousness, especially emotionally and psychologically, of that country? What was the religion that you were raised in? They go real together. I'll give you an example. In the Philippines, Catholicism is 90%, right? 90%. But if you jump on a boat or an airplane and go from the island that my wife grew up in, the island of Cebu in the southern Filipino islands, and just go about 300 miles to a little island called Indonesia, it's almost flipped. It's about 80% Muslim today. You see? And I guarantee you, the influence is, even though those two islands, right, are only 300 miles of ocean between them, which is nothing. I mean, most states in America are at least 300 miles or more from top to bottom. Most European countries are 300 miles top to bottom or east to west. It's not a lot of distance, but it's not only influenced by the two different religions, it's influenced by the governments, because how the government in the Philippines is run and how the government in Indonesia, which is a one island country itself, is also run. Think about that, right? So then, after examining that, observe your early years with mom and dad. Or if you were adopted or placed in a house, a foster home, you have to consider that. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't be a bad idea to do a column exercise on my country, on the religion I was brought up in, and on how mom and dad or the foster home that I grew up in. It will blow your mind. And you'll go, oh my God, that's why initially I was processing this and that. Now, it's funny thing, but this long term changes everything here. It does. If you do this for 7 years, 5 to 15 minutes a day, you will change this in a positive way forever. But along the way, you're going to have setbacks. And that's where mind level 2 or number 2 kicks in. And that's where you hear the religion you brought up in speaking to you about certain issues. That's where you hear the country you were brought up in speaking to you. That's where you hear mom and dad speaking to you. Outside authorities, right? First responders, the clergy, the therapists you went to. You see what I'm saying? That influences you. Short term, the easiest way to blow that out, and you're going to laugh when I say this, but you're going to understand why. The Heavenly Father chose an incarnation of joy and laughter to be with you now. Humor, humor. Go to YouTube whenever you're not feeling good and just put in your favorite comedian. One of mine growing up was Red Skeleton. He was so daggum funny that he wouldn't even have to say anything. His body language would make you laugh. He had this character called Clem Cadiddlehop. And he usually was miming. Every now and then he might have said 1 or 2 words in a 5-minute skit. But for the most part, you thought you were looking at a modern day version. He would dress like he was a bum on the street of a Charlie Chaplin era. But man, this guy was funny. I remember he would come on Sunday, and then we would watch The Wonderful World of Disney, maybe an episode of Bonanza. When you think about the quality of that programming, I was so happy that I was raised with what Walt Disney was then. Tinkerbell would come in, and Walt Disney himself was speaking, a man of vision. You know, then you had Red Skeleton, and then you had a wholesome show like Bonanza that taught you about right and wrong. Lord knows what's on the TV today that kids are watching. But that was important because most of the time, if my dad was not out of town on work, him and me, we were watching that together. And I remember that was some of the most neatest times that we watched. And that's the programming I grew up with, which would have influenced how you thought. But I learned to laugh. Laughter and feeling good about yourself alters your vibration immediately. It's like jumping in and taking a walk in nature, doing your figure eights, your Tai Chi swim. All of that will immediately change your frequency, and usually it alters your whole emotional, psychological state of being. This is the impact of our system. It's amazing. Sometimes I used to do if I even thought I was going down a pity party way for any reason, if I couldn't get anybody to go to a movie with me, a matinee, I would look on, and go. And just in those days, I remember you had to pick up the paper, usually the Sunday paper. I always kept the movie and entertainment and art business because I was in the entertainment business. But I remember I would look at the Sunday paper, ask my mom not to throw it away, and I would see what the matinees were, and I would treat myself to something either very adventuresome, maybe a good action movie, a lot of times a comedy, and I would know that that was going to make me feel better. You need to know what makes you feel better right away because that changes your frequency immediately. This changes it long term. I'm feeling great, but you know what? In a few minutes, I'm going to feel even better than that. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for awakening in me the joy and the laughter of you. My favorite name of God in the mala beads is Lila, which in Sanskrit basically means God came down to play with us. And he sent his son who was playful. If you've ever been around Lamaji in a tour, you know it doesn't go long before Lamaji has to start laughing. I have to be the monkey. God decided to choose this vehicle this time because there's way too much serious going on in the world. And sometimes we take ourselves way too seriously. So let's learn, as John the Beloved said, release and let go and let God. Release and let go and let God. And embrace the humor. When you're doing that next mirror meditation, laugh at yourself. It's really easy to fall in love with yourself when you're laughing. It's hard to do when you're worrying. Get rid of worry. God bless you. Baraka Bashai. I'll see you tomorrow on the Saturday version of Rasaji Speaks. God bless you and your family. See you soon.